Pete Hegseth has unsurprisingly done it again. And who among us is shocked that the most unqualified, inept, and incapable Secretary of Defense in American history continues to screw up and create scandals in this administration? But this time, it's not just Pete Hegseth, because it's what was revealed about the entire administration that makes his latest scandal so bad. And yeah, there's another Hegseth scandal, because of course there is. But this time, it might be a little different, because as Donald Trump stated during Signalgate 2, which how have we had two Signalgates, Pete Hegseth's got one chance left. And of course, he screwed it up. And we are going to get into all of it in the new breaking news about Pete Hegseth. But before we do, if I could quickly ask you to leave a like on this video. And if you haven't already and you enjoy our channel, to hit that subscribe button. It goes a long way, and it really does mean a lot to me. Now, before we get into this breaking news about Hegseth, I want to start with some of the latest screw-ups out of the Pentagon that really color exactly what is happening right now. Firing generals to pay for Trump's parade. Hegseth rebuked over slash and burn plan. Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth has instructed top Pentagon officials to reduce the ranks of four-star generals and admirals by at least 20%, CNN reported. The cut applies across all branches of the military, which currently has 37 four-star officers. The directive also mandates a 20% reduction in National Guard generals and a 10% overall decrease in all general and flag officers, those ranked 1 star and above, who currently number around 900. In a video posted on the social platform X, Hegseth introduced the historic policy and said it is about less generals and more GIs. Political commentators and journalists reacted to the development and said the move was politically motivated. Author Don Winslow wrote on X, "This is a targeted program to remove generals and admirals and other military officers that do not align politically with Donald Trump. This way, if they ever declare martial law or invoke the military to break the law, there will be little to no resistance from the non-Trumpers." Defense One reporter Megan Myers noted Hegseth says this isn't a slash and burn, but the memo has no guidance on criteria for eliminating jobs, nor a requirement for the services to report their proposals to him for approval. And to further show it's a slash and burn, we saw Senator Tammy Duckworth call out Hegseth in this clip right here.
Secretary Hegseth posted on social media he's ending the Women, Peace, and Security program. Hegseth said is a divisive social justice initiative from feminists, a distraction from war fighting. But when we checked how the now chairman of the Joint Chiefs described it, General Kane, he said he used the program in the field after an assault to send in female members to speak with women and children to better understand human terrain. So if the military establishment says it's useful and the Secretary of Defense says it's not and it's a distraction, what happens, and can lawmakers like yourself actually rescue this program?
We can if our Republicans will stop, rolling over for this president. We can actually rescue this program. The program is critically important. It's supported by every combatant commander. It's a program that came about, by the way, Marco Rubio was one of the leaders.
And Kristi Noem as a lawmaker.
Supported the program.
And President Trump signed it into law.
And he signed it into law. This shows how incompetent Hegseth is, that in his slash and burn efforts at the Pentagon, he basically slash and burn something without realizing that this was actually a Trump-era law.
It is just incompetence and chaos at the Pentagon. But who should that surprise, considering Pete Hegseth is in charge? And it seems that his incompetence is disseminated throughout the rest of the administration. Maybe they're sharing how to be as stupid as they are over Signal. But apparently it's not just Signal, because a different messaging app used within the Trump White House was just hacked, and it revealed how bad things are that really demonstrate why this Hegseth news is so troubling. Tech site 404 Media says Signal-like app used by Trump advisor was hacked. The unofficial version of Signal used by Donald Trump's former national security advisor Mike Waltz has been hacked. Tech site 404 Media said Sunday, raising further concern over the security of communications exchange at the highest levels of the U.S. government. 404 Media said the hacker exploited a vulnerability in telemessage, a Signal-like application which a Reuters photograph appears to show Waltz using at a cabinet meeting on Wednesday. So potentially all of the communications happening throughout the Trump White House, all these texts, all these messages have been hacked. All of their communications are vulnerable. And with that in mind, what is Pete Hegseth still doing? Using Signal. Yes, we are getting Signalgate Part 3, as we see from a story in the Wall Street Journal right here. Pete Hegseth conducted Pentagon business on at least a dozen separate signal chats from a new report. Secretary of Defense Pete Hegseth reportedly used the messaging app Signal in at least a dozen separate chats to conduct official Pentagon business, according to the Wall Street Journal. Unnamed sources familiar with his management practices told the Wall Street Journal that Hegseth used Signal extensively and preferred to run the Defense Department's day-to-day operations using the mobile app over standard Pentagon communication lines. In one case, he told aides on the encrypted app to inform foreign governments about an unfolding military operation, the Journal reported. He also used the non-governmental messaging service to discuss media appearances, foreign travel, his schedule, and other unclassified but sensitive information, two people said. The acting inspector general of the Pentagon subsequently launched an investigation into Hegseth's use of the unclassified commercially available application to share sensitive military actions. Hegseth received further backlash in April after it was reported that he may have shared information about the military's bombing campaign in Yemen in a second Signal group chat with members of his family. It was also reported that Hegseth set up Signal on several Pentagon computers in response to a ban on personal phones. It feels like every week we learn about a new set of Signal chats from Pete Hegseth. How is this still happening? How is there more? I don't understand this level of incompetence, that he continues to carry out business on Signal, that Pete Hegseth is still firing off military information, is sharing plans with foreign governments over unsecure channels. Like, this is just the highest level of idiocy. It is astonishing. I am constantly blown away. But it is funny that with all of this going on, there is clearly one thing at the Pentagon that still works. There is one station that's still getting its job done. And you can see that in this clip right here.
With more DoD reforms, this one is General and Flag Officer Reductions. That's the official title. My title is Less Generals, More GIs.
MAGA doesn't care about the VA. Cut it up all you want. They don't care about the Pentagon running smoothly. They don't care about the security of classified information. What they do care about, what is most important, is that Pete Hegseth clearly got his makeup station in order. Pete Hegseth clearly got his little blush on, got a little foundation, right? He's got his lights set up so he can make his nice little social media videos. That's what's important. We got him, boys. Yeah, we did it. Come on now. This is absurdity. This is the incompetence of the administration. So bad, in fact, that now Mike Pence is back calling out Donald Trump and his entire administration. Take a listen to what he had to say in an interview right here.
Board last night at the JFK Library for standing up to President Trump and his minions and certifying the 2020 election in the aftermath of the January 6th attack and direct threats to him and his family. CNN anchor and chief White House correspondent Caitlin Collins just interviewed the former vice president. Caitlin, you also talked about the economy with Pence. Just last week in a Wall Street Journal op-ed, he called Trump's tariffs, quote, a massive policy misstep, unquote. What did he have to say today?
Yeah, and he said the only thing Americans had been liberated from, Drake, was trillions of dollars in investments after seeing what happened to the stock market after that April 2nd announcement from President Trump. And Mike Pence was serving as Donald Trump's vice president the last time he was in office, the last time he implemented tariffs. He agreed with that, but it was in a certainly more limited and narrowed kind of structure that we saw. Now that we're seeing a more sweeping set of tariffs and really just across the board on as Pence put it, friend and foe alike from many different nations, he said that he strongly disagrees with the way that President Trump is implementing these tariffs this time around, and also warned, Jake, about the hurt that this could cause to American consumers. And I asked him about something that the president keeps repeating lately, saying that, yes, children may have to make do with fewer toys as a result of this. One argument he's been making lately is that maybe children will have to make do with fewer toys, fewer dolls. The quote that he had yesterday was, I'm just saying that they don't need to have 30 dolls, they can have 3. They don't need to have 250 pencils, they can have 5. Do you think the American people buy that argument?
I have 2 grown daughters, I have 3 small granddaughters. And look, keeping dolls affordable, keeping our kids' toys affordable, that really is part of the American dream. I remember recently the Secretary of the Treasury said that cheap goods was not a part of the American dream. Well, I'm somebody who spent almost my entire life in public service. We lived on our paycheck while we raised 3 kids and put 3 kids through college. Cheap goods are a big part of it. And I think we ought to be candid about that.
And Jake, as I was speaking with Vice President Pence, he was talking about what could be to come as a result of these tariffs, not just looking at the economy as it is now, but also warning about supply shortages and potentially seeing empty shelves and a sticker shock that Americans are potentially going to experience as a result of these tariffs being put in place and going in if they're not trade deals that are made. And he was essentially saying, Jake, that he believes it will get so bad that the American people will demand a different path out of the White House, a change when it comes to the president's tariff policy. Obviously, that remains to be seen. But he also said that they had multiple conversations about tariffs when he was serving as vice president, and essentially said they just have fundamentally different views on what kind of tariffs work and how they're implemented.
The vice president, former vice president, has both praised and criticized his former boss, President Trump, since the start of the second term. What other areas is there disagreement between Vice President Pence and President Trump?
Yeah, Jake, and he did that in our interview. We covered a lot of ground, from the president's comments on the Constitution and due process to the war that is raging still in Ukraine.
I heard Derek Thompson and Tim Miller talking about this on the Bulwark podcast, and I don't always love to do what if this was Biden, what if this was Democrats, but truly, if Bernie Sanders was president and said, little girls will only have $2 instead of 30 because we're implementing my new state-run economy, which is essentially what Donald Trump's tariffs are, Fox News would cease to exist because it would have exploded. Fox would have exploded. Jesse Waters would have exploded. And yet, crickets. Nothing. And nothing from a media that is constantly clamoring about and like patting themselves on the back, but also calling themselves out, saying that we should have covered, Joe Biden's cognitive decline more. Well, that is all they ever talked about was Joe Biden's age. And they say, oh, we have to make sure that in the future, we don't miss stories like this. We need to cover them. We need to. Meanwhile, Donald Trump is quite literally melting down before our eyes. Donald Trump with a family history of Alzheimer's and dementia, and nothing. The press is failing. They are failing. And that is why we have to make it up. That's what we're doing on this show. And if you want to support that, make it up. Not like Pete Hegseth, but you know what I mean. If you want to support what we're doing on this show, we'll have a little fun with it. As always, you can hit that subscribe button, leave a like on this video. And if you stuck around at the end, you can drop a blue heart in the comments. And until next time, I'll see you soon.